All right, fantastic. The number continues to climb. Thank you so much for joining us. You are here for this webinar this evening, really focused on supporting our U.S. military service members and veterans and military affiliated folks. I think with that, we'll go ahead and get started. One of the things that is really great to have you all in the Zoom room tonight is that this group, as you will learn, has been traveling together virtually and in person for almost 5 years now. It's been a really great collaboration, and you're going to have a chance to hear from an incredible panel of admissions professionals tonight. I want to kick us off by just allowing them to introduce themselves briefly, and then I will go through our program this evening. Let's go in alphabetical order by institution, and we'll start with Lexi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra Hurd. I go by Lexi. I use she, her pronouns. I am an Associate Dean of Admission at Amherst College in Amherst, Mass. And I've worked with our military affiliated students for the last 14 years here at the institution. And it's been an amazing journey to get to know more about our students through that process. I also just wanted to make a quick mention that one of my colleagues, Nick Fritz, is also here. You may not see him on screen, but you may see him responding to a few Q&A questions. So hello from Nick as well.
Hi, everyone. From Princeton University, I'm Alex Buston, where I serve as Senior Associate Dean and Director of Transfer and Military and Veteran Admission, which I've been working on for about the last 10 years or so. And very glad to be with you all here tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dean Mendes. I use he, him pronouns, Associate Director of Admission at Williams College, and this is my 5th year at Williams and working with our veteran and transfer students. Good to be here.
And I'm Patricia Way. I am an Associate Director of Admissions and Director of Veterans Outreach for the Yale Admissions Office. The favorite part of my job is working with our non-traditional students and our student veterans. And I have been doing that since, I think, 2008.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. My name is Adam Sapp. I'm the Director of Admission at Pomona College, and I've been working with veterans in our office for the last 7 years. I'll be the MC for the first half of our session, and we'll move through what I hope is a lot of really good quality information for you. We're going to talk a little bit about things we have in common. We're going to talk a little bit about admissions and financial aid tonight. We're going to talk about student support, housing, and we're going to talk about what we hope are some of the central issues that we know veterans and military affiliated folks are thinking about right now as you're thinking about your application or you're thinking about transfer or transfer credit. And then we're going to move into a section where we're going to talk about our individual institutions for a few minutes each. And then Alex Buston from Princeton is going to take us home with the Q&A session. So thank you so much for all the questions that you submitted. We read through them and reviewed them earlier today, and we're really excited to make sure we get to all of your questions. A few housekeeping notes. If you do have questions during the presentation, we really would prefer that you use the Q&A, not the chat. We do have folks like Nick and some other staff members back there who are going to be answering your questions as we move through. And if you need the captions, please use the show captions button there on the webinar. We want to make sure you understand clearly everything that's said and don't have any confusion throughout the program. We're going to take 60, 70 minutes max of your time tonight. We'll try to wrap up right on time and be respectful of the hour that you're giving us. So with that, we're going to move the slideshow for the first few slides, which are mine. And, you know, one of the things that I think is really important to start with are some things that we have in common. And one of the ways in which we like to talk about this are really talking about our philosophy and the ways in which we educate students. And if you think about institutions, the institutions represented here, Williams, Pomona, Amherst, Yale, and Princeton. One of the things that is so critical is the kind of education that we have. And that education is really focused on interdisciplinary learning and moving beyond the major. One of the things that you're going to learn a lot about tonight is the idea that thinking about a subject when it comes to your major is important. but it's not the only thing that's going to matter at our institutions. You're going to have to think beyond your major, beyond the core classes that you want to take. And the ways in which we structure our education are all a little bit different. And we're going to talk about that tonight. We also all believe in the idea that diverse voices make our institutions better. It's one of the reasons why we do this work with our military affiliated communities. And we work with community college students, and we work with transfer students and non-traditional students, because we know that we need lots of different voices in our classrooms in order to make our institutions be as excellent as they are. We also don't think that all learning occurs in class. I don't think we have to tell you that. You probably have learned a lot when you were not in a classroom, and you're going to bring that lived experience to our campuses. And we think with the small classes that we have and the ways in which we support students, that you are going to have all of the ingredients that you need in order to make a great education possible at our institutions. The reality is we are some of the highest graduation rate institutions in the country. When you come to our schools, you will graduate. You'll graduate on time. You'll get that degree. You'll have the support you'll need. You'll have life experiences beyond the major, things like internships and research. You'll have peers and peer networks and the use of an alumni network that's going to help launch you into a career or into that next phase. Maybe that's graduate school. Maybe that's a fellowship. And all of that's possible because we are institutions that value the contributions of transfer students and that value the contributions of our military affiliated students. And so that's our military veterans and our dependents and our spouses as well. We know that that's critical. And this is partly why we do this work. So in the next slide here, I think it's important that we talk about a few other topics. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dean, and he's going to talk a little bit about student support.
Thank you, Adam. And yes, so all of the schools here have amazing resources and support for all of our students, but particularly for our non-traditional students and our veteran students. What's common to say on our campuses is we have resources to help you find the resources. So an abundance of staff and talented folks on our campuses that are there to support students. So whether you're a veteran student that is looking to enroll as a first-year student or as a transfer student, there are programs that get you off the ground running with orientation programs that are pre-orientation where you can come in early before the general students and get to connect with the group that you identify with. And also you can have those experiences of joining the programs that are for first-generation students, for international students, for other cohorts as well. There are many campus-based resources, as you can see on the slide. All of us will have integrated mental health and wellness, well-being programs and staff there, and all of us will also have virtual programming that is 24-hour services as well. The typical student health services for any health needs that students have, and it might be a little different for some of our veteran students, particularly those who served in combat as well. So all of the resource centers that we have, academic support, access to VA healthcare in our regions as well. And also there's peer support. Students like to support each other, particularly at campuses like ours, where there's lots of programming and support financially for student groups, whether it's a veteran student group or a transfer student group. There are going to be peer support, and sometimes students would rather connect with peer-to-peer and work on some of the things that help students matriculate and get comfortable on campuses. Sometimes it's easier to do that with a peer-to-peer focus. All the academic support that is offered on our campuses for all students is there for our veteran students and our non-traditional students, but we understand that there are going to be different needs for that group, and so we will have people in our dean's office or provost's office that their job and part of their portfolio is to support non-traditional students that typically would cover veterans and transfer students as well. And focus on the community. So focus on the broader community on our campuses. So making sure that you're part of our larger community first, and then for that differentiation for your cohort that you identify with, that you're most salient with, and maybe there's different needs. So you can have the community within the community as far as being a military veteran or a transfer student or other identities that you have as well. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about financial aid and affordability. We know this is a big part of the process here, and maybe where a lot of the stress comes in. And we know that the sticker price for private colleges in the U.S. is very expensive. But all of the schools here that are on the panel today have some of the most generous financial aid policies of any colleges in the country. And that's definitely the case for our veteran and non-traditional students as well. We all practice need-blind admissions for our veteran students, for our U.S. citizens as well. We all meet 100% demonstrated need for all of our students who apply, regardless of what type of student they are and where they're applying from. And so that's going to cover the full cost of attendance. So that's going to cover tuition, room and board. In many cases, that's also going to cover books and health insurance and summer storage. In some cases, that'll cover year-round housing. Many of us will have all grant financial aid, which is money that you will not have to pay back, and there will be that is something that is really valuable to students along the way. All of you would receive your financial aid package when you get your offer admission. It would break down the different variables that are part of the financial aid, and that's going to vary from school to school. But again, the schools on this panel are going to have very generous financial aid policies, and you will see that reflected in that package that you receive upon admission. So there will be financial aid fee waivers available, CSS profile, FAFSA fee waivers that you can use for that, and if you need that. And for many of the schools, it's automatic for veterans. The veteran benefits that you have at your behalf, Yellow Ribbon program. Many of the schools will do exact matching for Yellow Ribbon. So check with each school. And also flexibility with the post 9/11 GI Bill. Many of the schools, you won't have to use that GI Bill. We will meet 100% demonstrated need for your financial aid, and you can use that GI Bill benefit for graduate school, other expenses that you might have as well. So check with each school, but many of us, you will not have to use that GI Bill, and you can save that for something else, and we still will meet 100% demonstrated need for your financial aid. And it's a very individualized process at all the stops along the way, and make sure you're connecting with a financial aid advisor as well with each of our schools, and we can work with you and the individualized things that you're going to need. We've seen every scenario across the board, and our advisors are very skilled and experienced. You'll even find that there are some cases where there are financial means that can help with childcare or spouse partner as well, and probably some housing opportunities for veterans that are coming with families, depending on the school and the financial aid budget. But we know that this is a complicated piece, but rest assured you are going to get the most comprehensive financial aid from the schools that are on this panel. So thank you. We'll move on to the next slide.
Thank you so much, Dean. So I have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about transfer of credit. And I say this knowing that there are definitely some of you out there who do not intend to apply as transfer students. Nonetheless, I know that many of you have lots of questions about coursework that you may have completed either during your time in service or after your time in service. So this would still be largely applicable to all of you who may be out there, regardless of there. The first thing I want to mention on the left-hand column there is that if you are applying as a first-year student to any of our institutions, we will still consider academic work that you've completed after high school for our admission evaluative purposes. So just because some coursework may not transfer in, so for instance, if you're applying as a first-year student You're not going to have credit sort of transfer in toward graduation because you're committing to being on our campus for 4 years as a student. We still will recognize that you've completed some work in that process there, and that's really important to us, especially because that's going to be the most recent work that you've completed. Likewise, for the next bullet point, transferability versus admission considerations. Now, that's a little bit of a vague bullet point, but many of you, when you come to speak with us, and I encourage you all to reach out to us individually, because one of the things that we have all learned from working with student veterans over the years is that one of the best things that we can do is have an individualized conversation with you about your particular educational journey, which for each one of you is very individualized. How much college credit you might have, not have, when would be the right time to apply, when you're getting out of the service, etc. But regardless of that, some of you may find that when you have a conversation with us, that we say, this is really awesome that you've done some of this coursework. Some of this may not transfer into our institutions for graduation credit, but I want you to know that we still value that from the admission standpoint. And if a course doesn't transfer in, it doesn't mean that the admission committee does not feel like it has value. What transfers in toward graduation is largely about whether or not the course could theoretically be offered on our campus, which for some of the coursework that you may have completed over time just wouldn't fit sort of into our liberal arts tradition. But again, there's value in all of that, and we understand that from the admissions perspective. So we may like to see your JST or a transcript from the Community College of the Air Force, or understand that you've got some CLEP credit. You may hear that that may not transfer into our graduation for us, but we understand the value that goes into that, and that is important for us to know. So we would love to know about those opportunities that you have if you happen to have them. In general, liberal arts and science courses, similar to those offered at our institutions, are the types of courses that will transfer in towards graduation credit. Credit is typically not awarded for pre-professional courses, so it might be business. Some of us may consider engineering courses, so I put a little caveat on that. But like accounting, nursing, some of those very career-specific courses you may not find will transfer in toward graduation. But again, we still do understand the amount of work that has gone into that from the admissions perspective. And the other thing I note that courses do not need to be part of a degree program to transfer. Sometimes I get that question, oh, I took a class at this institution and the A class at this institution over here. Very common in all of our experiences in working with military students that you kind of fit in coursework where you could along the way. So it doesn't need to be part of an associate's degree program or something like that for it to be considered for transfer. On the other column here, if you have the opportunity and space to sort of select courses prior to transfer, and maybe you're getting out of the service and thinking about enrolling at a community college or something like that, the best course of action that we have would be to choose courses that are sort of similar in nature to courses that we may have on our campuses. A good rule of thumb is that if you're taking courses in academic departments that we also have, generally many of those courses are going to transfer. So science courses, social science courses, humanities courses, and things like that. You can do and the other thing to know is that many of our institutions do not require specific classes to say you must have taken this specific English composition class before you can apply for transfer. That just doesn't kind of apply for us. So a multitude of courses will work. And if you happen to be taking courses that are part of a state transfer agreement program or something like that, and you're looking toward the liberal arts, generally those will work for us too. All of that to say, you can reach out to us at any time to learn more about your individualized situation and how that might work at our institutions. We encourage you to do that. And also know that if you are applying as a transfer student, that admitted transfer students at the point of admission will receive a transferable credit evaluation. So you will have a course by course description of what did transfer in, an opportunity to talk to us about that, and an anticipated graduation year for our traditional programs there. One other last quick note is that some of us will accept online credits these days, a very common question among the military community. So do know that that can work, but if possible, please do choose in-person classes. I know that can be challenging in a lot of ways, but one of the main things is that will help with transferability, but it also is the same educational style that we have in our campuses. So it's good practice for that, but we know in some cases it's just not possible to do that. So that's a little bit about transfer credit, and I hope to answer some questions later on.
Thank you, Lexi. And that's a good segue to talk about the admissions process. What do we look for in a whole person review process? I think that can often be a source of stress because we can't give you a specific formula and say, you know, if you have this GPA, you have this percentage chance of being admitted. But rest assured that we spend a lot of time reviewing your applications and really take many factors into consideration. So certainly your potential to thrive academically at our colleges is of paramount concern. We want to be sure that we admit students whom we know will thrive and succeed academically at Yale. We don't want to be a place where, you know, we admit a lot of students and then we weed them out once they're there. We don't do that. And Lexi had talked about sort of the importance of the types of courses that you take and how it impacts the transfer of credit. But the courses you take are also very important in how we review your application. And just like Lexi said, we do want to see students who have taken courses that are similar to what our colleges offer. So it is really helpful, especially to see students who have taken classes that focus a lot on critical reading and writing skills, because no matter what you major in, you will need to be able to write well and to think critically. And it's also important to take strong quantitative, to take quantitative reasoning classes, because even if you are majoring in history, you're going to need to have strong quantitative reasoning skills. So those are some of the courses that we encourage students to take, and we do want to see in your transcript that you are doing well, especially your recent academic performance. It is not unusual for us to have successful candidates who may not have done well when they were in high school or even earlier in their college trajectory or college experience. But we do expect students to show strong recent academic performance, because that's a strong indicator in terms of how well you're going to do at our college campuses. There are certainly applicants who have consistently done well during their sort of whole high school career or in their college career as well, and that's fine. But I don't want students to self-select themselves out of applying because they didn't do well in high school. If that is the case, you can take some college classes, and then if you do well, we will certainly take that into consideration when we review your application. And another way that we can tell whether a student will thrive academically at Yale is from your letters of recommendation that you get from your instructors, because they see you in a classroom setting. They can tell us about your learning style. Perhaps you started off taking this history class and it was a little bit tough for you, but you worked really hard. You met with the instructor and ended up doing really well. That sort of information we can't really tell just by looking at your grades. So letters of recommendation from instructors are really important. But we also understand that you may not always be able to get recommendation letters from people who have taught you an academic subject. That is something that we would like to see, but we also understand, you know, if you're in the military and you've been deployed, et cetera, that you may not be able to get those recommendation letters, in which case it is fine if you were to submit recommendation letters maybe from an employer, supervisor, military supervisor, a mentor of some sort. And at all of our institutions, we are currently test optional, which means that if you submit your SAT or ACT to us, we will take them into consideration when we review your application, but they are not required. So you do not have to take these tests if you prefer not to, or maybe you took them when you were in high school and you don't want to submit the scores, and that's completely fine. What that means is that the admissions committee will simply put more emphasis on the other materials in your application. And provided that somebody is pretty strong academically and we know that the student will succeed academically at our institution, we're also looking to see how they might contribute to the campus community. So how do we tell that? One of the best ways is through your essays, your personal statements that you share with us in your application, because that's the part of the application where you can really share with us what's important to you, your values, perhaps how you might have changed since high school. Perhaps you might want to reflect upon how your military career has impacted you. So those are not, that's not information that we can get from looking at your transcripts, but your essays really tell us a lot more about who you are as a student, who you are as a person, and how you might contribute to our campus. We will also look at your list of non-academic involvement and your professional or military experience. And for non-traditional students and adult students, we're not really looking at those non-academic engagement like we would somebody who's 17 or 18 years old. You know, we're not expecting you to be a member of the debate club or student body president, right? But we do want to learn more about your professional experience, your military experience, and perhaps you are now at a community college and you're involved in some way with your community college or your community. So let us know all about that, because that is a good sort of indicator of how you might engage our college community. And the decisions we make, you know, it's not that just one person reads the application and makes a decision, or that we use some type of formula or algorithm to determine a decision. It really is a holistic process, and most of us will use a committee process where there will be different people, admissions officers, maybe faculty members, maybe advisors in the room discussing your application when we make admissions decisions. And so all 5 of our colleges here are pretty selective. It's you know, I admit that it's hard to get into, but I don't want you to self-select yourself out, because I think that there are many more veterans for whom our colleges could be good fits than people who are applying. And so I always encourage students, no matter whether they're applying as first years or transfers or to our non-traditional students programs, that they should be applying to schools with a range of selectivity. So it's not prudent to only apply to the most selective colleges in the country. And it's also, you're also not challenging yourself enough if you are only applying to colleges you know you're going to get into. So you want to be sure that you apply to schools with a range of selectivity. Have a few colleges where you know you're definitely going to get into. You know, some colleges that are sort of kind of on target, and you know, 1 or 2 schools that are reach schools. And so that's a very sort of quick and dirty look at how we review applications. I'm sure that you will have more questions. Feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we will be sure to answer them. So I would now like to pass this over to Alex Buston.
Thank you, Patricia. And a lot of great advice there, especially at the end in terms of applying to colleges with a range of selectivity, because you're absolutely right. I mean, that's great advice. And I think we encourage students to really be aiming high and looking at the range of colleges. And I want to talk a little bit about just some next steps on your approach based on a lot of the information that we've talked about respective to the admission process financially and our support resources. Looking at the names of those of you who are attending, some of you we've talked to before, and so some of you maybe we're talking to for the first time. So just understanding there is a range here of how much this may apply to you depending on where you are in the process. But we'll start from the beginning, which is usually a good idea for those of you who are maybe just kind of getting started thinking about this process and maybe heard about us and aren't too familiar with some of these processes. But you know, a really good place to start, and these, like I said, are broadly in chronological order, is just connect with us and with nonprofit support services that exist out there completely free of charge that can help provide you some pretty helpful advice, not just from us as higher education professionals, but from veterans professionals who themselves have made a similar transition that you're trying to make from the service with however many gaps in between to higher education. Service to School and Leadership Scholar Program are two leading candidates that are nonprofits run by veterans, for veterans and service members. I'll talk a little bit about them on the next slide and how you can connect with them, but highly recommend getting involved if you haven't already. And then the next point about considering academic options is not too different from what's already been mentioned when we're talking about transfer credit or admission and what we focus on. But even if you're not applying as a transfer, considering those academic options is important, especially given that you're in a non-traditional trajectory. No matter how good high school may have gone for you, some of our students who are applying with non-traditional trajectories did have a fine high school and they're continuing that in college, which is great. But if you didn't, that absolutely does not disqualify you. And I think this is a first starting point where a lot of students do start to self-select themselves out, especially because they focus too much on high school, thinking, especially for institutions that require the high school transcript, the thought perfect grades and perfect test scores, and you all in your pools have tens of thousands of high school students that you don't admit that have those perfect scores and grades. How am I going to compete with that? And while it's true that we do have that many students in our pools that have those kinds of credentials at high school level, they kind of have to, because that's pretty much the extent of their experience in terms of what they've accomplished. They are high school students. They are primarily, that is their general life's work to that point. So that's where we're looking for that strength of experience. But in terms of the academic options, there's a lot you can do to make up for that we talked about in terms of either university or local community college courses, online classes, ideally at nonprofit institutions that are really valuing the academic experience there, that help to build up a recent trajectory, because that's really what we're focusing on when we're looking at, are you prepared currently for our academic institutions? And that's going to absolutely overcome any past high school, or even maybe the first time in college didn't go so well. Know that we are looking for academic preparation. Yes, some of those courses may certainly be transferable, but at the same time, you're doing this, as was said earlier, for also academic preparation, regardless of whether you're maybe getting transfer credit. It shows your ability to thrive in rigorous academic courses. And if you can do it in person to reflect the learning that we represent, great. If not, online options are a great way to still cover that material and show us that you're prepared. And then also consider another option here, these military-specific academic workshops that exist. The Warrior Scholar Project, another great example of a great nonprofit run by veterans, for veterans and service members, that partner with institutions like ourselves at Service to School and Leadership Scholar, similar kind of partnership, but also provide academic workshops that are taught by our faculty. I'll share some more information about that as well, but anything that can help you get more preparation there as well. Keep in mind that if you're looking at institutions like ours that are full-time, on-campus, rigorous residential experiences, these are not designed to be done remotely, but are done so students can fully immerse themselves in the community. So you really want to the best you can, time your projected enrollment term with your separation if you're currently active. So you may still be applying when you're active, but if it's for fall 2024, ideally you would be hopefully separating by that time. Obviously, if things happen and you have to, you're required to stay an extra year, or you're not able to separate at that time, that's perfectly fine. And there are plenty of opportunities to defer enrollment if things don't go as planned. But again, try to keep in mind that this will be something that you'll be doing after you separate. Talk to us about your admission program. What are the next steps, and which is the right one for you? We talked about some of you may be transfer students, which is very common for non-traditional and veteran students, but some of them may apply as first years if they don't have as much transfer credit, whether it's transferable or just not as much college work as well. And sometimes there's a third option, an other option that is designed specifically for veterans and or other types of non-traditional students. Some colleges only have one or two of these options, but that third option does exist as well. And you'll hear about one from Yale a little bit later when they talk about their Eli Whitney program. So have that conversation. If you're not sure where you apply, that's partly what we're here to answer for you, that to help you figure out what's your trajectory to date, what are you planning to do between now and your projected enrollment, and what process makes the most sense for you as far as both timing and first year versus transfer or another option. As Patricia was saying earlier, we understand with our non-traditional students, in terms of the valuable life experience they've gained, whether it's in the military or otherwise, there may have been some ups and downs and some unusual circumstances that prevented you from completing at a given timeline, or maybe missteps outside of that you learn from. But really take the time to explain your trajectory or any unusual circumstances on the application, especially if there are gaps or maybe reasons you've withdrawn from a class. That was a question that came up. What if you have withdrawn courses? That by itself doesn't disadvantage you, other than the fact that you didn't complete the coursework. But if you're able to make it up later, that certainly makes up for that as well. But a lot of students kind of look at this and don't want to talk about a year when things didn't go as well, or maybe don't let us know that they couldn't finish a class because they were deployed, or maybe there were financial reasons or whatever. This is not, in our eyes, making excuses for those kinds of unusual circumstances, but it's valuable information for us to have. And not only that, but it adds to the life experience that you bring and some of the skills in the determination or overcoming those particular experiences. So really encourage you to look at those different experiences, not necessarily as deficits, but consider them strengths in the experience that you add to campus and your ability to thrive as well, because that's how we see them as well. So this may be through submitting a CV or a resume that helps to chart out the roadmap between what happened since high school for the most part, or use optional additional information sections if you don't feel like those circumstances can really be fully captured within the required essays or the parts that Patricia was talking about earlier. And if you can't find a place in the application to do it, just send us an email saying, hey, here's a paragraph of how I want to explain that semester in fall of 2021. Great. We'll add that to your application. That's helpful information for us to really contextually and appropriately evaluate your trajectory. And then we talked a little bit about recommendations already. There will usually be required ones, as Patricia was talking about, but absolutely consider those optional recommendations, those non-academic ones. Again, most students, which are usually like our high school students, don't necessarily take advantage of this, but we highly recommend that you do if as someone who has older life or more life experience to talk about, whether it's in the service or otherwise, and that can maybe know you better than the one faculty member who taught you for a semester at a college or in an online setting. So absolutely take advantage of those you served with, even if they're non-academic, that could speak to your professional experience, your work ethic, your leadership, a lot of intangible qualities that may not have been in an academic setting, but will absolutely serve you as a great student, as a great team player on our campuses inside and outside of the classroom. And they'll hopefully reiterate some of the things that you've told us about in your application that may be connected to your service or may not. But with that, I did want to again highlight some of the additional free resources that I just briefly mentioned, not just here to give you a sense of how to connect with them, but highly recommend being in touch, because this, again, can provide you resources and advice from people who have been in your shoes literally and have made the transition. And also in the case of some of them, Service to School is an example of this, provide what they call an addendum that helps to break down a little bit about your military service. So if you don't want to go into too much detail about your military service, and because that's not what you want to write your essays about, that's perfectly fine. You can compartmentalize that within that addendum. But Service to School is, like I said, absolutely free and open to any active duty or veteran or reserves-based service member or veteran, regardless of branch. Leadership Scholar Program is more specifically limited to Marines and specifically active duty or reservist Marines who are making the transition out. But again, Service to School will work with everybody. And the same is true with the Warrior Scholar Project. They will work with any student to not only provide assistance in the application process, but to provide part of that academic transition that I spoke about in terms of giving you some great resources, some kind of a crash course of how to write a paper or study STEM or business or whatever at some of our campuses, depending on what are offered. So again, highly recommend connecting with these. And like all resources that we would recommend, they are entirely free, and will connect you with other veterans who have gone through what you've done, others who are doing what you're trying to do. And also, like I said, with us at the institutions you may be applying to, or maybe even give you some ideas based on your interests and based on their experience, what other institutions you might be considering, or you should consider rather, that you may not already have been considering. So we're going to pivot here at this junction and move on from the joint information that we are sharing that among us to just give you a quick introduction to how a lot of the pieces we talked about apply to our individual institutions. So we'll start again from the top alphabetically and kick it over to Amherst.
Thank you so much, Alex. So some of you may be familiar with Amherst College and some of you may not. So I'm going to use the next 2 to 3 minutes to give you a crash course in Amherst College. So each one of us on our individual slides will have our email address. So please do feel free to jot that down and reach out to us. But in general, Amherst College is a small residential liberal arts institution of about 1,900 students out in the western part of the state. And you'll hear another one of my colleagues who's also from Western Massachusetts here in just a little bit. 2 particular things about Amherst that I want to mention. One is that we have something called an open curriculum. What that means is that we do not have general education requirements, nor do we have distribution requirements that we have for our students. So in particular, for students who are returning to education over the years, I've learned that The openness and the flexibility that students have with that with regards to course selection is really valuable to them. So many of our students who are returning to a place like Amherst after working for a few years being in the service have a strong sense of purpose when they get here about how to use their time. And the open curriculum can really help facilitate that so that you can maximize the time here to make sure that you are accomplishing what it is that you are setting out to do and learn. The other thing is that we are a member of something called the 5-College Consortium. So in addition to there being Amherst College in our little area, there are 4 other colleges and universities. Altogether, we have about 30,000 undergraduate students within 10 miles of Amherst College. And as a result of the 5-College Consortium, you have free access to about 5,000 additional courses that you can take free of charge at these other institutions, and also access to hundreds of additional student clubs, activities, lecture series, and things like that. So it makes for a very robust community. In terms of our veteran student community specifically, I wanted to highlight that we do have a travel funding opportunity. It's called the U.S. Service Member Veteran Travel Grant. Feel free to email me a link for more. It's also on our webpage. And you can actually apply for travel funding to visit Amherst. And this can be done before you are even sure that you'd like to apply for admission to the institution. So if you're like, I'm not sure, I've never thought about a small liberal arts institution, I'm not sure what it would feel like, this is a great opportunity to look into that and sort of there's a small application that we have for the travel grant program, but we do welcome any student who may be interested in learning more to explore that, and we can work with that for you. The other bullet points there are relatively self-explanatory. Like many of the institutions here today, like all the institutions, we have some veteran student support that is specifically geared toward our student veterans. At Amherst, ours is through our Class and Access Resource Center. They help coordinate pre-orientation programs, community building programs, and a range of different ways to support our transfer students and our veterans. And just 2 other quick bullet points is that if you are considering transfer, we do have a fall and spring entry program. And then we have a first year program, our fall entry for our first year program. And we have veterans represented in both our first year and transfer program. So that's a little bit about Amherst. And I will turn it over to my colleague, Adam, for Pomona.
All right, thanks, Lexi. I want to start with that picture behind me. It is a beautiful 68 degrees here today in Southern California. I happen to be at Pomona, which is in Los Angeles County. So for many of you who may have been stationed in Southern California or have connections to Southern California, we can be a popular option if this is a part of the country where you like to stay or where you like to be. Pomona is actually in the town of Claremont. Claremont, California is the last town moving east in Los Angeles County, just to give yourself some directions. We are about 20 minutes east of Pasadena, for example, off of the 15. About an hour and a half from Camp Pendleton, if you know where that is, down in San Diego. 1,750 students at Pomona, but we're part of the Claremont Colleges, which is a consortium of schools that allows you to have a lot more flexibility to be able to take courses beyond Pomona. So you may have heard of our sister schools. There's Claremont McKenna College, Pitzer College, Scripps College, Harvey Mudd College, and together with Pomona, we form the Claremont Consortium. So you attend Pomona, but you can take classes at all 5 schools. You can join clubs and activities at all 5 schools. You can participate in the lectures and the free programs and go to any of the dining halls at any of the schools. So in total, there's about 6,000 total undergraduates. So it has a kind of medium-sized university feel when you're walking around all the campuses. We have a significant number of courses that we offer in lots of different majors, 48 different majors across the major academic areas. So the natural sciences, the social sciences, the arts and humanities. So you could be physics or economics or computer science. You could be history or psychology or sociology. Maybe you want to be art or English and creative writing, or you want to be environmental studies, environmental analysis is the name of the major at Pomona. There's lots of different ways that you can pursue a degree. And our veterans who've come through in the past, they have actually done a lot of different degrees. And one of my favorite veteran from several years ago was a geology major. He is now a hydrologist in Sacramento. Another was an economics major. He's now a financial analyst working in credit in San Francisco. A couple of veterans in medical school now after majoring in the STEM fields. And so our veterans go off and do lots and lots of really interesting things after Pomona. Our entire transfer community, remember, we're about 415 freshmen every year, and there's about 20 to 30 transfers that come in every year. About 60 to 75% of those are coming from community colleges. And that is mostly where our veterans come from, our community college transfers. But as Lexi talked about at Amherst, you can apply to be a first-year transfer at Pomona as well, or a first-year student at Pomona as well. We're happy to have you as a first year. And for our students as well who are veterans, as Alex talked about and Dean talked about, we don't require you to use your veterans benefits. So almost all of our veterans are using Pomona financial aid and saving their GI Bill and their veterans benefits for graduate school. So the ones who went on to get a master's in engineering or medical school, they're using their benefits to pay for the graduate program because Pomona funded their undergraduate program with significant amounts of our own institutional aid. We have strong support for veterans. There's the veteran student organizations on campus. There's the transfer club on campus. Housing is available on campus. We also live, of course, in suburban LA. So if you're coming with a spouse or a partner and you would rather be in an apartment close to campus, there's literally apartments right across from Pomona that you can rent and be right near campus, but you're technically off campus. And that can be budgeted in your financial aid package as off-campus housing will actually support that. So there's lots of ways to thrive at Pomona. And if you're interested in what I have to say, I'm happy to talk to you at the end. But let's turn it over to Princeton and we'll hear from Alex.
Great. Thank you, Adam. So quickly speaking about Princeton, as highlighted here, I do want to mention my contact information. Please do feel free to reach out to me at any point and set up a call, or if you want to go into more detail about the application process. I know I've spoken to some of you already, but just a quick rundown about what defines Princeton in this context, and also where we're located, sometimes less well known. We are in Princeton, New Jersey, so a small suburban town right in the middle of the state, in between New York City and Philadelphia. They're both each about 50 miles away, about an hour away or so. You can get pretty quickly in between those areas by train. There's a train that comes right out of campus. But we're in a pretty suburban area, also close to some rural areas as well. So a good basis there as well for a variety of your geography. We're a major research university at a small liberal arts college. In fact, one of the only institutions of its type that is both has the resources of Nobel Prize winners and top academic faculty and some of the major research areas that are available in graduate programs, but are very heavily focused, almost 2-to-1, on the liberal arts college at the undergraduate levels. You see small size college, about 5,500 undergrads, almost twice as many as our graduate students, which is very rare for a major research university. Allows us to have very heavy lopsided ratio of, like I said, dedicating those resources to those students, a 5-to-1 student to faculty ratio. And this allows us to guarantee not only great academic resources, but research for every single student. So research at Princeton, self-directed learning, is not optional. It is something that all of our students do, and therefore it's a guaranteed opportunity that every single student, regardless of your major, regardless of whether you're a transfer or a first year or military or otherwise, you will have the opportunity to work one-on-one with faculty to design an original independent research project known as a senior thesis during your senior year, as well as prior to that if you're interested in it, related to your major and otherwise. And we also have guaranteed housing opportunities for all undergraduates, regardless of age, regardless of whether you're coming by yourself, or you're coming with a family, a spouse, dependents, children, fur children, and otherwise. We have pet-friendly housing if you want to live on campus with your family, or if you want to live off campus, there are available options too, because we're a very residential area. But if you want to live on campus, you are absolutely guaranteed that, including if you are bringing a family with you. With respect to our military community, veterans and service members can apply as either transfers or first-year students, so we don't have a third option, where the majority of them will apply as transfers based on the credit that they have. We can certainly admit students as first-year students as well. So again, that's a conversation we can have down the road. We do automatically waive the application fee for any military-connected student. We do not require the CSS profile or any kind of platform form for our financial aid application. It's an entirely Princeton designed form, and it is free, so there's no fee associated with that either. And when it comes to financial aid, we have about the most financial aid available by dollar amount per student of any university in the world. So we are providing pretty much full grant-based financial aid to every single veteran student on campus without the use of any of their benefits. They could use them if they like, they're interested in it, but I don't believe any of our current veterans are using a GI Bill or yellow ribbon or anything like that, because the grant can cover that full cost of attendance, again, including that housing, whether they live on or off campus. But our transfer program is, like I said, a popular choice because it was designed with U.S. military veterans in mind, of course, if they want to transfer. So it is a good option there for you as well. And currently, we're just over 60 veterans in the undergraduate population. That is continuing to grow. This number has really increased exponentially over the next few years. So if you are applying and you enroll and are admitted in the next year or two, chances are that number will be quite a bit higher. Like I said, none of them are using their benefits. And they're all supported by a dynamic group of resources on campus through our administrators, our directors of transfer, veteran, and non-traditional student programs, a veteran coordinator who we are hiring very soon, as well as our student organizations, the Princeton Student Veterans, as well as the Transfer Student Association, and our PVETS alumni group that are helpful to provide a lot of guidance, mentoring, and also financial support for our veterans too. So more information on the exact process to apply on our U.S. military applicants page as well. Please connect with me. And also I'm happy to connect you with our current student veterans if you're interested in being in touch with them as well. But for now, I will pass it on back to Dean to talk about Williams College.
Thank you very much, Alex. So yes, Williams College. And again, for those of you joining us late, I am Dean Mendes, I'm Associate Director of Admission here at Williams. We are located in Massachusetts. As Lexi mentioned, we are also in the western part of the state. We're a little northern and western than where Amherst is, excuse me. We're right on the border of New York State and Vermont State, tucked in the valley, surrounded by beautiful mountains on all sides of our community. So we are small, private liberal arts and science colleges. So we have 2,200 students from all over the globe on our campus. Academically, one of the distinctions for us is we offer tutorial style classes. We're the only college in the US that offers Oxford style tutorial courses that are 2 students and 1 professor across all areas of study, across all 65 areas of our studies, and across all grade levels as well. So a distinction for us with 2 students and 1 professor in those classes, our average class size is 13 students and our student faculty ratio is 7-to-1. So you're going to get attention in those classes. We want to hear student voices. We want to hear what you have to think about the reading. Many seminar style classes, we want to hear your voice, and our faculty are going to facilitate those conversations throughout that as well. So as far as our transfer veteran non-traditional student community, 90% of our current transfers and veterans attended community colleges, so that's our focus as well at Williams. We have an all-grant financial aid program that was announced back in April of 2022. So 100% of the financial aid is grant. As Alex mentioned at Princeton, we follow that model as well, where there are no loans. We cover the cost of books. We cover all the incidental costs there. So 100% of your financial aid is granted. For our veterans, 100% of our veterans are receiving 100% financial aid from Williams, not using any of their GI benefits. And if you are a veteran, please apply for financial aid. We're also going to consider you an independent student as well, an independent applicant. And that probably goes for all of the colleges on the panel as well. So as mentioned in the support slide earlier, when I was talking about the opportunities for differentiation and inclusion, that's what we want at Williams. We want you to be able to connect with those students that are veterans, those are transfers, those that have a different pathway coming to our campus, but also to be included in the larger population, the broader community at Williams. And so we have a dean of transfer and veteran, Tamanika Stewart, who operates in our dean's office. So she is the coordinator of that, and she manages our transfer and veteran orientation program and all the support for that. We do have students that work with ambassadors in her office as well as peer support for that. So she is the point person that will help students with all the resources and support that they need and they can find on our campus. We have many housing options for our students. Housing is guaranteed for as many years as you would be at Williams, and that includes for spouse, partners, children as well. We do have some options for kind of what we call off-campus housing that is Williams owned for families that are coming in. We have a family on campus now where it's a husband and wife who are both veterans, who are both Williams students who have a 4-year-old daughter, and they are living in a house just around the corner from the admission office as well. Flexibility with credit is important for us. We allow students to relinquish credit. So most of our transfers and our veterans are mostly coming in as transfers as well. They have relinquished credits, even if they've come in with 2 years or an associate's degree. They are relinquishing a year or 2 years to get the most out of Williams. To maybe they want to study abroad, maybe they want to get more involved in research, they want to maybe slow down and take advantage of the time there, and the financial aid will be with them for the time that they are on our campus. We have a veteran who transferred, who is an Army veteran who is retired, 20 years in the service, and transferred from a 4-year institution, and he relinquished his credits and started as a first-year student at Williams. So please connect with me. You see my email there on the slide. I can set up a time for you to have a video chat and answer your questions one-to-one. But thank you for listening, and I will pass it on to Patricia at Yale.
Thank you, Dean. And welcome again, everybody. My name is Patricia Way. I am going to flunk the test of talking about Yale in 2 minutes. So I wanted just to be sure to mention our website, admissions website for veterans, admissions.yale.edu/veterans, which will provide you with lots of information. And there's also a link there to our Yale veterans application checklist that I think will also be very helpful if you're considering applying to Yale. General information about Yale: we are a liberal arts college and a renowned research university. We're located in New Haven, Connecticut. We have roughly about 6,500 undergraduates and about 7,500 graduate students. So we're the largest university in this group of 5. One of the things that I think is nice is that as veterans and adult students, while you may be exactly in the same you're exactly the same academically as other undergraduates in terms of maturity and experience. You're more like graduate students, so it's nice to also have this cohort of graduate students that you may be able to connect with. And one of the differences between us and the other 4 colleges here is that we actually have 3 admissions pathways, not 2. The vast majority of our students enter as first-year students. We also have a traditional transfer program, and again, just like the other 4 colleges, but we do have this pretty unique program called the Eli Whitney Students Program for non-traditional students, and it is a program specifically designed for adult students. While we have student veterans in all 3 pathways, the vast majority of them are in the Eli Whitney Students Program because it is a program designed for non-traditional students, for adult students, people who have professional experience beyond just being a professional student for the last 12 or to 15 years. Over half of our transfer and Eli Whitney students had attended 2-year colleges. So don't feel, if you're trying to figure out where to take your classes, don't feel that you have to go to a private university, that you have to go to a 4-year university before submitting a Yale application. 40 of our 40 students at Yale are student veterans. So it's been sort of incrementally increasing, and all 5 of our colleges are here and doing this panel because we welcome applications from veterans and transitioning service members, because we feel that you bring a very different perspective to our campus and really add to our campus community. The application for the Transfer and Eli Whitney Students Program will become available probably around the week of November 20th, so it's not available just yet. And like everybody else here, Yale is very affordable with generous need-based financial aid. I always encourage students, even if you think that you're going to use your GI Bill benefits, to apply for financial aid. Yale's yellow ribbon match is pretty generous at $16,400 annually. But if you apply for financial aid, you can then compare whether the financial aid, need-based financial aid works better for you, or your GI Bill benefits and yellow ribbon benefits. At this point, we have all rambled on too long about our institutions and about admissions, et cetera. And I want to turn the program over back to Alex Buston for the Q&A section.
Thank you, Patricia. And thank you, everyone, for that great rundown to really conclude the formal part of the programming here and shift us into Q&A. And importantly, thank you all for attending, especially those of you live who, I'd like to say, started the Q&A some time ago. You've been putting some great questions into the Q&A box during this live presentation, and many of you submitted advanced questions as well in the registration that we will use to get us kicked off here. But do please continue to use the Q&A feature, and we'll add those live as they come through, in addition to the ones that we've typed and answered already. Just quickly though, before we get into that, just the information we have here. Obviously, we mentioned some dates to you. We've have them all listed here again for our upcoming application dates, whether you're a first year or a transfer or a third option in the case of EWSP, Yale's wonderful Eli Whitney Scholarship Program. And then also the registration link we have repeated here as well, as much as the QR code too. Most of you are here probably because you registered and received this link, but if you happen to be seeing this otherwise, please feel free to register after the fact as well, because this serves not only to have you on our the link for this live session and recording, which we hope to send afterwards, but also we'll connect you with our mailing list. So when we do future sessions like this, ones where we really dig much more deeply into crafting that essay or the types of recommendations and much more that we'll have in the coming months, you'll be sure to be notified with invitations of that as well. So to kick off the Q&A, I'm going to get us started with one that looks like it was submitted online. And Lexi, I will pass this on to you. We talked about capitalizing on your experiences in the essays and telling us about themselves. To the extent that a student writes about their military experience, how should they approach that? How much do we want to hear about when applying as far as their military experience?
I think it's a great question, and one that we get asked a lot, along with similar questions like what are you looking for? Like, what do you want me to say about various things? And I think that that's sort of, in my experience, a military culture kind of thing. And one of the hardest things as I've worked with military veterans over the years is they kind of have to flip that 180 because there's not a specific formula that any of us are looking for in our applications. And we're actually looking for you to reflect on your experiences and how they've influenced you specifically. And over the course of all of the years that we've been working with military students, we've recognized that that is very different for individual students. Why you join the service, your experience in the service, how you feel about the service after you've left, is highly different. And that's why we also value all these perspectives on our campuses, because there's such a wide diversity of those lived experiences and how they show up on our communities, whether you are wearing a veteran badge everywhere you go or not that kind of student. All of that is unique to you, and all of that is relevant to being part of our communities, however that plays out individually. So in terms of the exact question there, which is how should we talk about that? Many of our questions, specifically in our essay questions, are going to ask you largely about like large influential times in your life and how that's played out. That's a summary of things, but answer that as honestly and self-reflectively as that is for you. And if your military experience has played a large role in that, let us know how that has played out for you and how that has reflected in your current status and how you currently exist in the world and find yourself. That's the interesting part for us. And so if the military has been the most influential thing for you, absolutely, like, please let us know. And if there are other experiences that you also want to tell us about there, and you also are a military veteran, by all means, please fill in those gaps in your application for us too. So there's not a right or wrong when it comes to that. There's not too much or too little. It really depends on your individual circumstances and how that all plays out.
Very well said, and really reiterating things that I hope you heard us say whether we were talking about financial aid or admission or the student support services, just how individualized they are. That's kind of what we're wanting to learn in the process. What does that mean to you? How much should you write about? It's kind of like how long is a piece of string? It really depends on what you want to cover and where that falls for you as the individual. One question that came through live, which looks like it was directed at the smaller liberal arts colleges here, Amherst, Pomona, and Williams. So maybe I'll ask you, Dean, to jump in. How old is too old?
Thanks, Alex. Are you asking that because I'm old? No, just kidding. So I think that, as Alex just mentioned, we're looking at these applications on an individual basis. Obviously, there's nothing that's too old. I will say that we're not going to discriminate based on age. We don't see many applications that are going to maybe be past the mid-30s. We do have that Army veteran on our campus who is 40. He's a sophomore now, and he's 40 years old, and he's on our campus and thriving. So we're looking at the whole application and all the different variables that are part of your application. And if the applicant wants to talk about their age and maybe how that influenced them or things that they could bring because of those experiences, then however they want to talk about that or not talk about that. But we're not going to deny somebody who just happens to be past a certain age. We don't have a cutoff for that. We're looking at the whole range of experiences in the same way that Lexi was just talking about how someone might talk about their military experience. People can talk about their life experience in a way that captures what kind of benefits those might bring that are different than what we might have on our campuses. We're looking for students in our non-traditional group that are going to add things that we don't have in our general population.
Sure, Adam, Pomona, and Alexi at Amherst would concur. But anything else to add to that on your side?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is it would suggest that means you've been out of high school. The distance between high school and your application time is going to be much, much greater. And so just being able to sort of be willing to provide the resume or tell the story about the life that you've led over the course of from high school beyond. I mean, that's just something that is pretty standard for us. But there's certainly no age limit. There's no age we're looking for. Lots of people can do lots of things in life and then come to college at Pomona at a second, as they're sort of getting a second wind, or they want to take a pivot or make a pivot and thrive.
Well said. And I will point out it's a quick typo on the slide that Lexi reminded me of. Just adding that I believe their transfer deadline is March 1st, not March 11th. I think that might have been a typo. I'll take a quick one that was just put into the chat about considering adding a proof of disability on the application, especially related to 100% disability by the Veterans Affairs, or will that work against a student? First and foremost, absolutely will not work against a student, not only because that is, by legal definitions not permissible, but also because it's not something that we need to factor into, can a student thrive on our campuses. Our offices really included in a lot of the support services, maybe not explicitly mentioned earlier, but disability services absolutely provides the accommodations for any student to thrive as much as any other. So that's not factored into the admission decision. It would, of course, be the onus on a student to identify to the Office of Disability Services once they arrive on campus the accommodations that they would need, and they would assist them and take care of it. I imagine there are places where it could also have an impact on financial aid if there are VA benefits tied to that. Again, most of us, or in part or completely, do provide grant aid that can replace any use of benefits, so it may not impact there. But there are plenty of institutions outside of us that do use GI benefits or some kind of connection to that. So I believe it could have an impact on financial aid in some cases, but certainly not as a rule of disability in your application. Do you talk about it in your application as part of the question? Again, that's entirely up to you. Is it part of your experience that you want us to know about? Are there things connected to either overcoming the disability or how the disability has shaped your life that you want us to know about as it defines you? If that's the case, and it's something you want to tell us about, then you certainly can. But there's no obligation. The only thing, again, you would have to report is if it's related to financial aid and benefits, as well as, like I said, an accommodation when you actually arrive on the campus. Patricia, another question that came through in advance from a student about just the application. Are there any common mistakes or common omissions that you see military or veteran or transfer students making on the application or omitting?
Sure. I think one of the things that's important to remember is that it is most likely that the people reviewing your applications will not be veterans. So I think that it is really helpful to put information about your military experience in layman terms. There are lots of acronyms. There's lots of information about your titles that may not necessarily be evident to us. So I think that's one thing that would be helpful. Like you all said, it is actually very helpful to us if the military experience has been transformational for you. Don't be shy about sharing that with us. Your military identity is something, if that's something that's very important to you, by all means, sort of please let us know. And I think there's also one question in the Q&A box. Somebody had asked about application fees, so I'd like to also answer that. I think all of us will waive the application fee if you are currently serving or you have previously served in the U.S. military. So don't let the application fee prevent you from applying. And again, I said this before, don't self-select yourself out. There are many more veterans for whom our institutions could be good fits than who apply. Does that help, Alex?
Yeah, answered both those questions perfectly, and I'm glad you answered that too about application fee waivers. Most colleges will have it posted on our website saying that the fee is automatically waived. And if you're looking to apply to an institution that doesn't have that policy articulated, get in touch with them and ask them, do they have a policy? If not, ask them, will you waive my fee? And I would be shocked if institutions generally did not say yes, that they absolutely would. And another student asked about the travel credits or the travel allowance because the student lives in Texas versus elsewhere. That is part of the cost of attendance. So there is generally financial aid awards will account for either a move-in allowance or some assistance with that. Or if you happen to have to travel during the academic year during breaks, that is factored in. So if you live in Texas versus California versus nearby our campuses, that can certainly be factored in. There was one question that was already answered in the Q&A that I want to highlight.
Sorry, Alex. Sorry, Alex. I think the person who was asking that question was asking the question about whether we have travel grants for them to visit the campus as a prospective student before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was more the question.
Oh, you're right. No, thanks for clarifying. That varies by institutions. I think we do certainly more consistently provide that for students who are admitted and are deciding on the process on if it's a good fit. But whether there are open programs, that can tend to vary. And I think it's a good thing to ask about some of them that are either established flying programs. I believe Williams has one and so forth. But that varies by institution. But it's a very good thing to ask about. I would add that the Warrior Scholar Project is another great avenue to visit these institutions because they do provide the cost of attendance of the program is entirely free, and travel stipends to the program you happen to be attending in person can also be provided. In some cases, they have been able to do that in recent years. And I appreciate the clarification because I was about to launch into kind of a closing here, which was a question that is related to what we were just talking about, but one that I said was asked in the chat and that Adam graciously answered by typing. But it was about just connecting with other students, other student veterans at our institutions. And this case, it was speaking Marine with other students from Marine to Marine. And I would say we absolutely encourage that, whether it's about visiting the institution or getting to know the institution. These are all fantastic institutions that provide fantastic educations to students based on their academic areas of interest. But the fit is very subjective, and really thinking about what your goals are, what you're looking for at an institution, small liberal arts college, large university, individual setting, the size of the veteran group or whatever. your fit versus another student's fit can be very different, can be very subjective. So it's absolutely important to understand what that experience looks like for students and for students like yourself as a student veteran or otherwise. So talking to our students is absolutely one of the best ways to do that, whether it's through a fly-in program that may be offered at Williams or through connecting with our Princeton as a transfer veteran ambassador program. All of us have networks of student veteran organizations that are online, that are on Instagram or social media and whatnot, and they will give you the unfiltered and current experience beyond just our general travel policy and transfer and veteran policy talking points that we understand, but obviously aren't living. When speaking to those students, you will absolutely learn some things that you like and resonate with you, and maybe some things that they enjoy but don't sound appealing to you, and that's just as important as well in understanding what's the right fit for you. So absolutely connect with students, definitely multiple students, because there's a range of experience at each college, and everyone's experience is different. And if you can't find their information on our websites or on their social media, again, just get in touch with us, and we are more than happy to connect you with the leaders of those programs that will give you the candid, current, and unfiltered experience of what it's like to be a student, and particularly a military connected student on our campuses, because that's an important part of the process too. And it can factor into how you approach the essays and how you talk about your fit for that institution and how you've been thoughtful about that. But with that in mind, we also want to be respectful of your time, and we've gone a little bit over than I think we promised, but we really hope that the information we provided this evening, this afternoon, this morning, depending on where you happen to be joining from. I did notice someone from Hawaii earlier. So I'm really glad you could spend that time with us, and hope this information was helpful. Please continue the conversation. This is not a one and done and good luck situation. Whether you're watching this recording again, or whether you're reaching out to us or connecting with us for future webinars, we're more than happy to continue working with you and answering your questions. So it was a real privilege to talk to all of you on this Veterans Day week as we go into the observed Veterans Day this weekend. And we are more than happy to continue talking with you as you continue this process wherever you happen to be. So thank you all. For those who have served or are serving, have a wonderful Veterans Day, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thanks. Take care.